Welcome everyone to episode 29 of What's That Sound podcast. My name's Stu Watts and today I talked with Alex Markwell, who's an artist, songwriter and producer from Melbourne, Australia. In this episode, we talk about the importance of networking, especially in the early years of your career, his unique approach to songwriting sessions, and the importance of trusting your gut when you're tracking. For all that and heaps more, stay tuned. If you could do us a favor and share this podcast on your social media, whether that's in a DM or on your stories or in a conversation with your friends or peers, that just helps us spread the word of it and get it out to as many people as possible. And also, if you could hit follow or subscribe on your favorite podcast platform, that way you can stay up to date with any new episode. With all that said and done, let's get into it. Episode 29 of What's That Sound with Alex Markwell. You're listening to What's That Sound with your host, Stu Watts. What's going on, everyone? Welcome to another episode of What's That Sound podcast. My name's Stu Watts. I'm here today with Alex Markwell. Welcome to the podcast, mate.
Hello.
Thanks for making the trek out.
Yeah, thanks, man. Thanks for getting me in.
No worries. Let's kick it off with a little bit of an about you, who you are, what you do in the music industry.
Well, I kind of got that thing going on where I do a bit of production and also play music in a band. Yep. And over the last sort of 5 or so years, really started leaning a bit more into like the writing sort of side of things and just doing a bunch of co-writing.
Cool.
And artist development, that sort of stuff, which I'm really enjoying.
Let's name drop. Let's just get it out of the way.
I've been working with like this great artist from Adelaide called Stellie, who's doing some cool stuff.
Yep.
Been doing some stuff with Teen Jesus and the Gene Teasers.
Yep.
Writing a few sort of tunes with them.
They're doing very well at the moment.
Yeah, they're legends. They're awesome. So it's good vibes and energy and music.
Yeah, cool.
What else have I been doing? A bit of stuff for these artists from Brisbane called Wigs.
Wigs.
Who are rad. It's kind of just sick, kind of like a dancey electronic sort of stuff, with heaps of sass.
Yeah. And
good times. And then, God, that's what I was saying before. I was like, I actually had to like flick through like my Spotify list of things that I've been doing. I'm like, what have I been doing?
Yeah.
Getting into dance world, did a few remixes and stuff a year or so back.
Yeah.
And if did one for Silk City, which is Mark Ronson and Diplo.
So cool.
And then that led to a Portugal The Man remix.
Unreal.
And then one for Blackbear.
Yeah.
And getting my dance on.
Yeah, love it.
Playing a rock and roll band.
Yeah.
Start making dance and pop music a bit more.
So good. We'll explore that a bit later, but
so there you go. That's out of the way.
No, it's good. All the name dropping's done. I mean, we haven't mentioned your bands yet, but La Savage, is that right? Is that how you say it?
Yeah,
La Savage?
La Savage is what we're going for.
Okay,
but
that's the dance music, and you play guitar in Delta rigs.
Guitar and Delta rigs.
Yeah,
which has been my most long term. Sort of one.
Unreal. Let's take it back all the way to the start. Where did music come into your life?
Right. If you want to go are we just talking music?
Go all the way back,
because I grew up in Hong Kong.
Okay.
I was born over there and lived there for pretty much up to grade 11.
Right.
And when I was 4, my parents, I just supposedly asked my parents if to want to play violin.
Yep.
Which is, they're like,
random?
They're like, because, a lot of people kind of, they might sort of try to get their kids into a certain thing, like with sports or music or something. Yeah. But I think I heard... I can't remember the exact song, but I just learned it. I tried learning it and then I just didn't get good enough. But violin at 4, cool. And then started skateboarding and listening to punk music and Nirvana and started trying to play my violin like that.
Yeah.
And then got into guitar. Tried to learn Come As You Are by Nirvana. Couldn't get it in the first 2 tries, so just quit guitar for a year and a half.
Yep.
And then here we are.
Yeah, good. Good jump there.
And then there's I guess started playing in bands.
Yeah.
Now I've kind of started getting back into I bought myself a violin again because I'm like,
cool.
I'm gonna get back into it. Yeah, I just want to get back into it and just realize I kind of half get it.
Mm-hmm. But that's kind of me with piano and keyboard. Like when I was a kid, I learnt keyboard and piano for 3 or 4 years. And I could do, a fair bit of both hand stuff. I could piano, but then just dropped it because I wanted to focus on drums when I was 10 or 11. So I just dropped piano in grade 6. And then now I'm like, man, I really wish I had kept up with it. It would have been so handy. Like I can tinkle and I can.
You get it? Yeah, get it. Does it come? The
I can do
technique
melodies.
comes back a bit.
Yeah, I can't do 2 hands, but that would be very handy. But anyway, I might, if
And
I
I'm
ever
like
find time.
I'm the most under practiced long term drummer because I've been playing drums for like probably 15 years, but just never get to really play drums.
Yeah.
Like I can bust out 32 bars
Yeah.
in a studio sick, but don't think I could pull off a set.
Yeah, right.
But,
yeah. It's tiring.
Yeah.
that's my primary instrument.
And I don't want to.
I love it.
I love it. I just don't want to have to carry that shit in.
Yeah.
Around with
It
me.
is. It's. I always say I love playing drums, but I hate being a drummer.
Yeah,
it's
I love being a
painful.
drummer in the studio. It's like, hey, all right,
Yep.
get those 5 Bs out of here.
That's it. Yeah. Nice. Well, what was it about, like, punk music and that sort of stuff growing up that you were attracted to? What kind of stood out?
Oh, it's kind of like, it's a combo of like punk and hip hop that I was into at the same time. And I think there's a lot of worlds where they kind of mesh together, and the types of people that, the kids that I was hanging out with skateboarding.
Yep.
I don't know, it was just kind of like, I guess it's just, I've always been a bit on the fringe of what the normal sort of path you tend to go down with. And just guess it's just like, I don't know, the slightly just the
rebellion.
Probably. I know it's like the cliche thing to say, but just like I'm always a bit like, I'm a bit left to center.
Yeah.
And I guess that's just sort of tied in well with that.
Yep.
And also as a real nerd
Yep.
and just like, I guess like, just kind of like, not the most popular kid.
Yeah.
And then they'd, just end up hanging out with all these other like sort of like outcast punks and that sort of thing. And
I'm right there with you. I grew up on punk rock as well.
Yeah. And it's just that sort of thing. Be like, hey, these people are nerds like me, but they just like sort of dance around and not giving a shit about what they look like and kind of like freedom. Like
the ability side of things, like if you wanted to play metal, you had to be really good and practice really hard. And I just couldn't. I could do it on drums somewhat. I could play fast punk stuff, but never double kick like proficiently. But there was always something about punk where it was like you have fun and you just play in the garage. You set up an amp and you get on the drums and you just play and see what happens. And there's like this energy and something about it where you don't have to be that good. You can just play and just feel good about it. Whereas metal and the other stuff that was big coming up, it was like you had to focus a lot and really be like on point with metal, and it just never kind of resonated with me. But
and you watch, I'll probably do it like 4 times throughout this chat. It's just like jump between little topics and stuff. I don't have the attention span for it. I'm like, fuck yeah, 4 chords.
Songs,
What are the other chords? That's it.
Yeah.
All right.
That's it.
What's the next song? 4 chords in a different order.
Yeah.
It's like fucking sick.
Just move it up the neck one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then it's like dabbled with the drop D thing a little bit. It's like, how many fingers do I need? Just fucking one.
Yeah, one.
All right.
That's sick.
I love this shit.
Yeah, man. So do you remember like whether you were like listening a lot to the production side of things back then, or was it more just like, give me the music?
I don't know. Probably like tempos had a lot to do with it without realizing it.
Sure.
And then I really like, I get into obviously the lyrical side of things.
Yep.
But no, I was probably just listening to like,
Yep.
Looking at like loving the fashion and the whole sort of ethos and everything behind it.
Yep.
And then I guess where that changed is like getting into the production-y side of things was kind of born out of necessity, where I was in just a shitty punk band. It's like, we want to record stuff.
Yeah.
And I love computers.
Yeah.
Grew up like, I don't know, just back when I was in Hong Kong, I used to sort of put together little PCs and stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
And I was like, oh, well, if I get a sound card and Cakewalk, then I can,
the MIDI programming of
just have, or like even just like
keyboards.
just have like one microphone that I'd quickly learn that a condenser needs phantom power.
True, yeah.
And that sort of shit, and just record just shitty versions of the band playing in one room with my big tower that I probably used to carry around and like set up and then be like, all right, that's there. And got the keyboard and we've got the screen, which probably would have been like some bigger, none of this, not that flat, but
Yeah, yeah.
could have probably even been the like old school CR, like
Well, mine was like
Ray ones.
the first like laptop that I bought was in like 2010, I reckon, or 2000. Yeah.
Oh,
something
laptops were like a
luxury.
but
but it was like so fat and like heavy, and like and even the screen the real estate that the screen took up compared to the actual computer. It's like, this is not efficient.
Like
but
IBM ThinkPad, those little weird red dots in the middle.
Yeah, that's it.
Are they still running those? I think they
probably yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't think Lenovo and that have changed too much.
Yeah.
They're like, it works. Yeah, sweet. So, and then getting more serious into music. When, like, were you like doing music full time, part time? Where did that kind of
like? I went to uni, did a bunch of different. Started off with like, I like computers. I'm like, all right, commerce and IT, and then I was just like, I remember the first IT class I went to go to. It's like, okay, how do you use Microsoft Excel? I was like, fuck this, I know how to. And I just wanted to I guess the attention span thing is, I was like, all right, I don't know how to do this.
Yep.
Just submitted all the like first year assignments
Basic
and stuff,
stuff,
and like got through them, just lost interest. Went through a different thing and just ended up just studying arts so I could tick the box for a thing. But I didn't really like necessarily tie into what I'm doing now. Now it's like, I guess just like I started, I don't know, getting an interest in sound, and I've always loved that sort of thing. But I guess it's just like started trying to figure out an angle to get into the assisting gigs. I kind of did the slightly more old school shit kick at studios, roll leads, do that sort of thing. And for years I was just kind of doing that unpaid, and then working at bars and cafes. Sure. The old music and hospitality combo.
Did you have anyone that was kind of guiding you through that process, or do you just kind of figure it out yourself?
Oh, no, like who's like one of the first sort of proper assisting gigs I got was down at, because I used to live up in Queensland, the Gold Coast.
Right.
And 301 in Byron had opened up a few years prior to that.
Cool.
And there's an engineer in there that I just hassled for a while called Paul Pilsenix. He was awesome.
Yep.
I still chat to him and see him randomly, still kicking goals up in Byron. And he just eventually just caved and he's like, all right, come hang out and you can do the whole like runners. And this is back like when people are still doing like lots of beds to tape and then dumping across into Pro Tools.
Yeah.
So I do a bit of tape op stuff and, just pick them up, like get them on, get that stuff out there. And then he went to Japan for a couple of weeks and he's like, oi, I'm like, the classics, like he went off to Japan, was working with this band who was from Brisbane, but they'd flown over this guy called Jim Abyss, who's awesome.
Yeah, I've heard the name.
Yeah. So he did I think he did a couple of Arctic Monkeys records and Kasabian. So then I'm just working with him in Byron for 3 months or so. And that's what kind of like threw things I thought I knew and got told and taught originally out the window.
Yeah.
And then I was like,
what sort of things?
Just heaps of stuff. All right. So it's like one of them, which I still do this shit now. It's like he really tapped into like arrangements.
Yep.
And then it's like songwriting, that sort of stuff, lyrics. But besides that, it's just like, just vibe. Like for example, because I remember, you get taught, we get shown, it's like, it's like, okay, so we need this exact, microphone and don't set this compressor. But here's just like, we're doing like an acoustic guitar and he says like, and the guy's like, I want to sing. He's like, all right, there's the thing. And then it's like, just strike while the iron's hot.
Yeah. Don't lose that momentum.
Yeah. And that sort of shit. And he's like, it's kind of like, they do a whole bunch of shit and just go for it. And then it'd be up to me to clean it all up later.
Right.
Instead of like, all right, just going to give us an hour here and we'll do this. And then everyone just fucks off and gets drunk. And, like the band's like floating in the pool and they don't want to come back and record. It's just kind of like, just keeping that sort of energy and vibe going.
That's cool. So how do you think that that influences what you do now? Like you're saying, you still do that.
I still do that. I reckon it just helps influence like just maintaining that level of like excitement and energy. And then so you kind of forget that you're recording a record almost. It's like you don't want to, like there's obviously you got to take care of the technical and the housekeeping side of things because you can only do that, keep striking while the iron's hot move for a while. Yeah. Because then it'll end up just being a shit show.
Yeah, that's it. And you don't want to be having to sit through and edit fucking a whole bunch of noise out of the tracks that you've got or anything like that.
Yeah, the thing, I guess the thing I took away from that is like, I remember I was setting up for something like I think we were doing like a B drum kit. We had like the big drum kit and the little drum kit. I'm like, oh, what preamps do you want? He's like, any of them shit. I'm like, no. It's like, no. It taught me to maybe to care less about gear a bit. Yeah. It's like, and just like, and also just don't follow, like, don't use things in the way that they're intended. Like, pretty much just like read the manual sort of thing, but then go whoop and just do what's right. Like, that's the first time I started really giving.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think there's something
edge.
to that for me is like, you know, it's important to have the foundation of knowledge so that you know that you're not doing the wrong thing.
Yeah.
But so that you can do the wrong thing in the right way. It's like, I don't know, it's a weird oxymoron sort of.
It's like if you didn't have the foundation, you'd be like, well, I can't get any sound out of it.
Yeah, exactly.
Or it's like, or
knowing how to troubleshoot or something
that sort
like
of thing.
that. Yeah.
But this, I guess, basically just like the thing I learned was just kind of like just go for it sometimes if you want to. If you know, like here's penning compressors on things on the way in to tools or tape. Whereas, you know, before that it'd be like, no, only delicately do this, which you have to do sometimes, but like sometimes it's just like just going hard in. And
it sounds good.
Yeah.
It is good, yeah.
Yeah. I know it's a bit of a cliche.
Well, I mean, the thing is like, you know, again, unless you know what is the wrong thing to listen for, then you can make those decisions really quickly and go like, this isn't damaging the record. Like
that's the thing.
This will give it that vibe that it needs to kind of carry everything else almost, especially for drums where you know, a lot of the time you're laying them down first to get the vibe of the whole sound of that song, you know, and, you know, compressors and EQs and stuff can give you that sound straight off the bat if you know how to use them and know that you're not damaging. Yeah, if you've completely ruined the transients and stuff, it can be hard to get back. But if that's the vibe that you're going for, then sweet.
Yeah, but it's more like if you're going for something clean and you didn't know how to get that, then you'd be fucked. But it's like if you know, all right, I can get clean if I want.
Yeah.
And I learned about malts as well.
Yep.
And using that, it's like, all right, leave one clean, malt another for those who aren't familiar with that because not everyone has patch bays.
Yeah.
It's a little, you know, take one output, plug it in this, and it duplicates it, and you can just send it off into different parallel chains.
Yeah.
And there's a bunch of that going on. It's like clean vocal, malt that off, slam, distorted, crazy vocal, and same with like drums and bass.
Yep. Yeah, cool. So talk us through, you know, when you, you know, towards more of what you're up to now, was that, did everything kind of coincide sort of simultaneously, or did it take kind of a few years for it to kind of be where it is now?
Took a while, like kind of did assisting stuff for probably a couple of years or something. Like did some stuff in 301. Then I ended up meeting the Sydney engineer from 301. Did a bit of stuff there.
Yep.
And then did some stuff at Sing Sing, the original one, before it got closed down, and like assisted on like mix assistant for like Body Jar record.
Unreal.
And some 28 Days stuff.
Sick, yeah.
And all that sort of stuff with a dude called Richard Stoltz.
Yep.
Who I think owns Woodstock now.
Right.
From memory.
Maybe.
He's epic.
Yeah.
And then went back to Brisbane and just started hiring out the studio in the valley called Sunshine Studios.
Yep.
And that had as well, like he's a funny, like eccentric but cool guy called Leon Prescott.
Yeah.
He's had that studio for years, and it's kind of like he was kind of at the point where I don't think he'd be bothered anymore. And he's just couldn't, like he loved it but just couldn't be fucked. So I ended up kind of sliding into a sort of house
taking
engineer.
all of his jobs.
Yeah, that sort of thing. And that's some good shit going through there.
Cool.
And there's like probably only studio in Brisbane with a Neve at the time.
Sick.
And so I did that and still like, you know, fill in the gaps financially with hospitality work.
Mm-hmm.
And then I guess like the rig sort of kicking off a bit helped me like stay busy between both things. And then somehow, I don't know, I can't really put a number of years on it. Maybe like probably just working hard out for 6 or 7 years before I can be like, all right, I'm on minimum wage.
Yeah.
Now.
All right, let's do it now. Yeah. Full time.
And then also like, you know, it kind of ended up being like, you know, chunks from different, just beating the mark up, chunks from lots of little areas that kind of fed together. And
well, that's kind of what it is these days, right? Like, you know, for anyone that is just starting out, you might not well be aware, but you've got to cover so many bases just to, not even to make ends meet as such, more just like you have to fill your time with all these different things. And like, especially when you're first starting and you're on your own, you know, you got to be the marketing guy. You got to film your own content. You got to record the bands. You got to produce. You got to mix. You got to send it out. Know people who can master it properly, or master it yourself if you're, that well versed. But you're covering so many bases and you're doing so many things.
Yeah, that's the thing. Yeah, for starting out, it's kind of like don't be surprised if you have to have your hands in a lot of different baskets.
Yeah,
because it's now it's like you're producing and then sometimes mixing and then live performance.
Yep.
And if you're not a musician thing, you can sometimes get into the back end of songwriting.
Yep.
And then there's syncs and then there's online content and all that sort of stuff. There's just lots of different little angles you can work, and they all just kind of add up to.
And they do, and it really kind of it shows you, for lack of a better word, your inadequacies, or where you need to focus your attention more, and understanding the business side of things and finances and all those sorts of things. It clearly pops out to you, shit, I'm not very good at this.
Yeah. And that's another good thing that I wish I kind of figured out a bit earlier is obviously you can't be great at everything. And sometimes it's worth your while surrounding yourself with people that are not only great at what you do, because, if you hang out with people that, your peers are even better than you, it's going to push you to get better.
Yep.
But also it's just get some people in the fold that make up for where you, if I'm not good at something, I won't try to just do it myself. I'll be like, well, I know this person who's way better at this.
100%.
It's for example, drums and stuff. I can play drums, I'm good.
Yeah.
But if I got Elliot who sings in the rigs, who's also a great drummer, or another bunch of friends who are great drums, why would I play drums when I could just get him
100%.
or her in and then just get them to...
And just be able to focus on what you can nail, the engineering or production or whatever.
The old Quincy Jones is he wasn't playing strings. He probably get someone to arrange them and then pretty much just pick from your pool of
100%
skilled people that are around you.
And it takes time to do that, and that's where the saying yes to a whole bunch of stuff right at the start in the first 5 years is so important, so you can understand that and know where your shortfallings are, and be actually, I don't love doing that, but I know that person does.
Yeah.
And I know them because I've been hanging out in, live venues, or I've been going to studios that I didn't know the owner of, or, and they've met me and someone just happened to be recording there or filling in on drums, or, there's so many unexpected things that just kind of happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Might go to, you don't know which way it's going to take you and what you're going to like. So it's don't close yourself off to anything, because you might realize I like this, but I don't like music, but I like game design.
Yeah.
Sound, it's
100%. And it's funny,
don't force yourself into a predetermined path, which you've deemed that you should be going down.
100%. And I've been, noticing, as probably everyone else on social media has, is how popular Rick Rubin is at the moment. And, he's been fucking going for 30 years, but all of a sudden, because he's just released his book and done his podcast, and all of a sudden he's in the common vernacular. He's talked about all the time. And he is a prime example of someone that has done whatever he wanted in whatever way he felt good at doing, and just kind of finding his own niche in, and calling himself a producer when he's not a producer.
Yeah, not by the traditional
sense.
Standards,
it's
but still is.
is, and gets what the artist needs out of it. So you might have this kind of preconceived idea of if I'm going to be a producer, I have to do this, this, and this. And it's no, you don't.
Yeah.
Just do what you like and do what you're good at. And like you just said,
work on stuff that you
people
like. Don't force it. Another thing is forcing yourself to work on stuff that you think is going to be popular as well, as opposed to because then you'll probably get if you're not enjoying what you're doing, it'll show, I reckon.
Yeah.
Because it'll just sound if you forcing yourself to work on something you don't want to, it'll end up sounding tired and defeated.
And you just kind of get sick of it.
Yeah.
Easier.
And you get over
quicker.
it. And you get,
you don't like going into work that day.
Yeah. And if you do something, it's, what is it? The old, you're only as good as your last bit of work sort of thing. Is if you do something you're not into and then your name's on it, it's kind of people are going to be like, well, why'd you do that?
Yeah. So do you have examples of times that have, happened in the past where you've had to say no to stuff, and, how do you kind of go about that when those things pop up?
Sometimes it's more a scheduling thing, where if it's it's I want this done there by this, and it's other times it's if I know I won't do it justice, and then I'll just be like, you know, I'll just say like, look, sometimes it's like easier to, because I got you know a manager that helps deal with that thing. So like recently able to palm it off to her and she can do that. But back in the day, I just used to, if I didn't want to work on something, I'd either try to offer them a solution, be like, it's not really my thing. Like I really like you as a human being.
Yeah.
But I just don't think I could do this justice.
Yeah.
And then, but I was like, but I have a buddy who loves doing this.
Yeah.
And you maybe want to go have a chat to them.
Yeah.
Because you don't want to, I don't know, people, with music and art and stuff, is like wearing your heart on your sleeve and people are proud of it. You don't want to, and I don't ever want to like just slam someone. So if it's something that's like not very good, I'll just like sometimes just blame the schedule. Be like, so when do you want it done?
Yeah.
It's like within a month. I'm like, I'm busy for 3 months.
Yeah.
Sort of, you know.
The other thing is like everyone's on their different like area of their journey as well. It's like, you know, we've all been in those places where we sounded like crap. Like you can't start off just being amazing unless you're like a freak of nature prodigy, like, which is like so rare. It's like, it almost doesn't exist.
Yeah.
So like we've all been places where we had to learn and get better and stuff. And there are other people that are wanting experience and wanting work and wanting to unpack and find out what they're good at, like we were talking about earlier. So they're great projects for those sorts of people that, you know, might not be where I'm at.
Yeah.
Like I don't think that I'm the right person for this at the moment, but I know someone that's really wanting to get a whole bunch of experience.
Yeah.
Let's try and see if that works for them.
That's the thing, I can like grow their skill set together.
Exactly.
You never know. It's like you might have just palmed off, you know,
the best team
yeah,
ever.
Yeah, the best team. And it's just like, oh, there you go. And then now they've got something good going on.
Yeah.
And they can build things together.
And that's
or
always
they'll
the
just
best,
do the first thing ever and it'll just blow up and hit top 10 and you'll be like, well, there you go. I couldn't have done that.
Yeah, exactly. And that is like, they're the best relationships, the ones where, you know, you find yourself like growing as a partnership. You know, you might have all these different partnerships, whether that's in production or mixing or recording or whatever it might be, or someone that's a videographer that wants to shoot all of you in the studio or something like that. You know, those sorts of relationships where you're both kind of figuring it out together, they're the ones where you end up being really strong because you're working at it together. You're trying to get better together.
Yeah, you're appreciating there are going to be flaws on both sides.
Yep. And it's cool.
And
and no one,
it just work.
And this is the problem with that perfection thing. It's like there's no such thing. And like no one else expects what we expect. You know what I mean? Like we have these ideas in our head of I want it to be like the fucking best. Like whether that's a song, like I love this song so much, it's going to be my song that everyone listens to.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, someone listens to the song that you made 4 years ago that you think sucks.
Yeah. Yeah. You can never fix stuff.
You can't you can't have those expectations of what someone else is going to think of what you output.
Yeah.
So it's, you know, it's best to completely abandon those things and just go with it and have fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, let's talk a bit more about your process these days. You know, where are you spending your time? Obviously, you know, you're doing stuff with the rigs.
Yeah.
That's probably taken up half your time, I would assume.
Yeah, like we've been a bit more strategic recently, so maybe a third. I'm going to go a third of my time.
Cool. And then when it comes to production, you're talking about songwriting.
Yeah.
Talk to us about like kind of where all your time's spread these days.
Probably, yeah, it's kind of like maybe for that remaining 2/3, like a third on writing, a third on production, and then a third on mixing. Maybe even like I've been leaning a bit more towards the like co-writing with other artists for their releases a bit more. Because it seems to be like, probably should have we should kind of like figure this out a while ago. It's like the role, like half getting into the production writing, then also half A&R hat. So it's kind of like, I don't know, because like artist development seems to be something that I, you know, figured out like, you know, obviously it's good to get into because you're helping, you know, younger artists, you know, find their feet. But also just like, it just means the same thing, you can find someone and, you know, grow with them and help them, you know, improve. And also you learn a lot of stuff because
for sure.
I think every time I work with like, you know, up and coming artists or producers, I'm like, what the fuck was that? And they're like, what do you mean this thing that I've been doing for years? I'm like, yeah, what was that? And they're like, you know.
What, you don't know it? Yeah, I know.
And I'm like, which is another just quick side, you know, little side quest here is the whole like not thinking you know everything.
Yeah.
And leaving egos at the door.
Yeah.
Which I like to think I do quite well. Because it's like if you go and be like, all right, I know everything. It's like that's not get out of here. You're not doing it right. You got your
I'm the guy.
It's like you got your crown on. That's the quickest way to turn someone off of working with you in the future. Yeah. And also just quit. Just give.
The other thing I think like it's so much fun to learn shit. Yeah. Like that. I think every producer and sound engineer loves learning. I don't think we're all nerds, you know, like we just love to learn and have knowledge in, you know, whereas, you know, other people might, you know, just like playing. Yeah. And just having fun and whatever. I think we're all really interested in unpacking things and being like, I'm going to dive deep on that for the next week and just try and. So when someone brings in a new pedal that you've never, how the fuck is it making that noise? Like that's sick. Show me.
The next thing you're like, just like looking up diodes and stuff. And like, oh, maybe I could build something like this.
Yeah.
And it's also the like. Find something to distract you from the main task at hand as well. It's like, I should be doing this, but instead I'm looking up the difference between silicon and germanium.
You've gone real deep there. You've lost me.
All right. It's like you got deadlines, be like, no, I'm just going to, okay, maybe I could build one of these.
Yeah.
That's another thing that is an easy path to go down. But I digress. What were you asking? Man. Oh, yeah. So, where's my time split up? Yeah, I guess, I don't know, writing, production, and then mixing stuff. And then just I guess being on having your ear out and eye out for just artists that you think are good, and just you know just because you never know. It's like if you can work with an artist and help develop him, you might be like, hey, I've got all this stuff. Pretty much like making a potential deal with either a label or a distributor or something, giving him something good that shows pretty much taking risk out of the equation for them. It's like, well, we've got this artist I've been working with for a year. The songs are great. And look, there's some songs. It's like how much you have to put into this. Nothing, just a bit of like support and maybe planning and marketing and stuff. Yeah. And it makes it an easier thing for them to.
So what I want to ask on that is like, how do you kind of foster those relationships where you're able to approach, like you were saying, a label or a distributor? Yeah. How does that relationship happen?
I guess it's easy. The one easy thing is just like networking thing. I guess it's being in the rigs probably helped. Like being in a band where you're surrounded by those sorts of crews kind of helped. But I'm trying to think of ways for people who aren't, you know, playing live. Yeah. I guess it's like you just be nice. Just talk. I just talk. I just like strive because I can just talk underwater, and I don't really have a problem with just rolling in and just chatting to people I don't know. Yeah. And like obviously it's like there's all these industry things, which some of them I just can't, you know, I get bored at. And then sometimes like socially anxious and just go into a big room. But most of the time just, I don't know, just talking to, it's like go out and meet people who are playing bands, and young, you know, young promoters and other producers and engineers and writers. Yeah. And just go up to things like Big Sound and stuff and go just hang out. Yeah. And just don't go up there with a sort of ulterior motive.
That's what I was going to say. Is like when I first started to get serious about like, okay, I want to be in the music industry. I want to, you know, find out what I'm good at and really figure that out. The networking side of it is huge, no doubt. Like it's probably should take up about, you know, 10 to 20% of your time. Like it's a big chunk of like what you're doing day to day just to keep kind of, you know, the spinning plates analogies, like you're doing that. But when you first start understanding that you need to do that, I think we think that we need to have an agenda and we think that we have to approach someone and talk to them about this specific thing because if I talk about this, then they'll talk to me about this. And you think that it's like going to have this path where it never happens that way.
Yeah. And I guess it's like everyone wants instant gratification. But sometimes if you go in there with that in mind, you'll either walk out disappointed or you'll walk out annoying people. Yeah,
ruining the conversation.
And like, it's just like, that's the thing. It's like, I guess also another one's like finding people to hang out with that are at the next sort of level of skill, not whatever, like not necessarily skill set, but like, you know, it's like, oh, I'm pretty green at this. I'm going to hang out with people who aren't. Yeah. And then just sort of learn a thing or two. Then they might throw you pretty much if you just get along and don't try to force your agenda on people, like if I rolled in here and it's like, hey, so you got any assisting gigs? You'd be like, whoa, relax. It's like, whereas if I find out where you go and have your coffee every morning, just sort of like casually start rocking, I'm just like, hey, so do I see you going to that studio over there? It's like, all right, catch you next week. And then you slowly, it's like, you've masterfully got yourself in there. And then it's like, so what do you like? Oh, actually I'm in the field as well. So I should come check it out.
Yeah.
It's kind of like just nurturing relationships, I guess.
And my thing is, you get people reaching out to you quite a bit about, if they see me on socials or whatever. And, I think the following up aspect is something that's really kind of, to me, lacking these days. It's like, if you really want something, you got to follow through and you got to say what you want and that you're going to do what you set out to. I have a lot of people, I get like life comes into play, there's all sorts of things that happen, but if you say that you want something, show me that you want it, because I won't take you seriously if you don't.
Yeah.
It's
it's like, because chances are, like, if someone hits you up to do some assisting here, chances are you might have forgotten if they didn't hear back. You'd be like, and they just follow up, follow through and follow up. Yeah. Just quick, like, hey, what's going on? Just wondering if you had any thoughts. And you'd be like, oh shit, I actually forgot. Yeah, come on. Yeah. Come on down.
Yeah. Like I'm mixing today. Just come and sit in and just watch. Yeah. Like I've never had an issue with anyone, coming and hanging out and just like learning by watching. That's totally cool, but just do it.
And then I'll take this to the dry cleaner and off it.
I don't care. Hey, thanks so much for listening so far. There is plenty more to come, so don't go anywhere. I just wanted to let you know that this podcast is made completely independently by myself with no sponsors. So if you like what you hear and you would like to show your support, you can send a donation to the PayPal link, paypal.me/whatsthatsound. The link is also in the show notes. Thanks so much for your support, and let's get back to it. Now, let's talk about, I want to know, the process of when you are in songwriting sessions, production sessions and things like that. What does that look like? Is it the same every time, or does it kind of take on its own kind of shape depending on the artist that you work with, that sort of thing?
Yeah, I'd say like a bit of, I guess, if it's just you and someone else, or if there's a group, or the genre as well. I don't know, like, I guess it's like what I do is just like usually just like hang out for a bit. Yeah. Like I guess it is different. Is like if you're going into like a session in like somewhere like Nashville or something. I'm being there, but what I can deduce. It's like, you're going to go into a session where someone's going to be like, right, straight in, you need an idea right away. I guess it's just read the room. Yeah, yep. Yeah, it's probably like, I just sort of like scope it out. If someone's a bit nervous, I'll just make some stupid jokes and just like sort of like come across, like pretty much just get the barrier down, basically. Yeah. Because if there's this like awkwardness, it's never going to really work. So sometimes I'm like, just writing just like, oh, do you want to go for a stroll, get a coffee? Sometimes I bring my dog Bailey into the studio. Cool. Yeah. And that's always like, hey. And they're like, hey, little dog, it's just an icebreaker. Absolutely. And in terms of so that's probably like building a good relationship. Yeah. And just and those are the times when you can start to learn about people's interests. Yeah. Because I still get nervous that I'm going to be like, what if I come up with shit? Yeah. What if they don't like what I'm, so it's always, I guess it's like kind of like musical speed dating sometimes. It is. Yeah, true. If you've never met the person that you're working with. But I usually just like, I don't know, chat, just put some tunes on in the background and just hang out for a bit. And then it's either like, then, I don't know, what I actually do like doing is having everything ready to go. Yeah. So it's like, all right, what do I think we're going to use? It's like, all right, I'm going to have just some I'm going to have a little kit set up in the background if we're going to do sort of live drums, or if not, I'll just have just like standard samples of that I think can at least get a sound going and a vibe. For sure, load it in, and then like say bass guitar plugged in, and then a guitar, and then some keys plugged in, and little SM7 just sitting on the bench ready to go. Ready to go. So it's not like, all right, hang a sec. Oh no. Yep. And then luckily, I don't know, got a piano in the studio a couple of years ago, and even that's just handy because it's like, tinkle. I don't know. Yeah. Just letting that creative kind of chords. Sometimes chords and like melody is a good way to start. But then I also love drums. Yeah. So it's like, all right, what tempo is like, pull up a song and just nick a tempo off a song. Yeah. It's like, all right, what's a good song that we're similar sort of domain that we want to go down, and it just pull up a song on Spotify and just nick their tempo. Yeah, 100%. And I think like that's a good little
For sure. And when people hear that, if you haven't kind of been doing that yourself and, you know, you kind of always finding that it might be a struggle to start a song. Like I hear that quite regularly. It's like, oh man, I just really struggle to get inspiration to start and just like sit in front of a keyboard and I come up with nothing or whatever. The problem that I find or that I hear people talk about is like, oh, I'm just going to end up ripping that song off. Well, you're not, because
never, even if you actively try to rip a song off, generally it doesn't end up sounding like it.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, always. Like I tend to like, not all the time, but if it's like, I don't know, if you can tell that all the parties are kind of like, where do we start? It's just like, lift the tempo and then just be like, all right, minor key, you know, even just like, and then if you still kind of stuck, I guess it's like rhythmic elements, like how fast do the chords change, or like, you know, that's a good way to sort of at least get going.
Yeah.
If you just kind of go like, all right, what's the tempo and what are the chords doing meter wise? It's like, are they holding for like a bar and just doing slow, or is it like, and then usually once you're off, you're just like, sick, and then something else will come.
Yep.
And then we have this thing, I don't know when we started doing it, Elliot and I do it all the time when we're doing sessions with other people. It's called pass the mic, and you pretty much just like, once you get like a bit of a, well, either just like a
loop or something,
just a chords and a drum beat or something, just loop, and then be like, all right, well, just
freestyle,
just like mumble melodies, and if you have any random words that come into mind, just like come in, and then usually someone will be like, oh, that's, and then you pass that around and just pretty much just loop record it for,
I love it.
Loop record it for ages, and then
sick.
go back through and be like, oh, that was sick.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, it's a good
That's
one.
so cool.
And then like, you know, I'm just always end up singing half mumbling and falsetto.
Yeah.
But then, it'll usually...
Now someone that can sing, you do it.
Yeah. Or even just, and also like sometimes just like treating what the mic sounds like a little bit. So it's not just like...
Give it a bit of vibe.
Yeah, a little bit of vibe. I'm a big vibe person.
Yep.
Big vibe guy.
Well, that leads us into the mixing side of things, because, you know, been listening through your tracks over the last few days just to kind of unpack and kind of get myself into where I love the you know, the danceable element to your music. You know, the drums are always really punchy and like they got so much energy and attitude. You know, you've obviously got the dance music side of things that, you know, without potentially meaning to early on, influences a lot of, you know, the Delta Riggs stuff. It's, you know, Delta Riggs to me is like, I love it. It's so catchy, and the guitar tones, and it kind of to me is like a very Australian version of the late 2000s British indie sort of movement that happened. You know, that there was a few bands that were tinkering with it, but no one really particularly kind of really found that British sound. So I don't know.
We go all over the shop, got a bit of that British thing, and then get it like, we all used to love listening to NERD and Pharrell and hip hop and stuff. There's a bit of that. And quiet phone.
Yeah, mine's been going off.
Just vibrating on the couch over there.
Yeah, man. Talk us through that. Like,
what do you want? What do you want to know?
Well, just like, you know, the sound of it. How do you
mixing things?
Mixing things.
Well, lots of what I do try to do, and that's another thing that I learned from just watching other more experienced producers and engineers at the time, is like I usually try to get it like close to what I'm hearing in my head on the way in to stuff. And that means I have to do less there. And I've also just committed to something as well, and trust your gut and go for it.
Yep.
So like with the drums and stuff, lots of the time I'll be doing like with like live drums, I always do like real slammed, not necessarily compressed, but like saturated. And like if there's a tube preamp or something, I'll usually like just do a mic and crank the tube preamp, back it down. So it's like saturated and distorty. I would have, been getting into like, I don't know, lots of the drum sounds and stuff I do are like more simple, like less, like most of the rig stuff is just all the overheads are just mono.
Cool.
So that's kind of like a bit of that sort of like hip hop and like minimal mic, soul-y sort of stuff, but then with rock and roll bands doing it.
Yeah.
And then maybe like stereo room, so there's a bit of width and stuff.
The guitars seem to play off each other a lot.
Yeah, they do. And also lots of guitars, we just don't use guitar amps anymore. That's kind of my new thing.
Yeah.
It's like if I'm, you know, we're all into a session, I have to play guitar, and also it's a bit of will throw people a bit. And also I reckon unique sounds like, what amp do you use? Like, I don't use amps.
Yeah.
Just through pedals and stuff.
Yeah.
I got those like, what do they use? Like a fuzz factory all the time. Just that really weird on-off one, but then straight into DI and then crank the shit out of that Neve and then run that into another Neve and then crank that and
So
then
sick.
that sort of, so it ends up sounding
Really
like a synth.
gnarly. Yeah.
Yeah. But drum stuff, trying to think like parallel. I love parallel chains on things. So I usually have like just a slammy parallel thing that if it's the electronic dancey sort of stuff, sometimes I don't do separate sends off each separate thing and I'll just parallel the whole drum thing.
Yeah, cool.
But if it's like live drums, I'll usually set up like, how tech are we going to go?
Oh,
tech and
whatever
tech
you
is
want.
whatever. So like pre-fader sends on all the drum buses with the panning set to the same spot, and then I can choose how much kick, because you don't want to send too much overhead
for sure
all the time. Sometimes you do, but not all the time. So I'll have like that, and then I'll have a distortion parallel, which goes for anything from like the devil lock to sometimes a decapitated, sometimes like a santan, I don't know, just whatever trash. I'll usually have like a whole bunch of different things and I'll just flick through and see what sounds good. And then sometimes for the dancey stuff, I'll have another parallel where it's just like all the bottom end rolled off and then just top end getting slammed by something, and that just kind of put in there.
Give it some aggressive and
then
in your face.
A bunch of, I don't know, it depends if it's done with room mics. Those also get slammed. I like just tastefully slamming things
for sure,
but not necessarily all the close mics too much. It's slam things around it and distort things and just play around with it. But parallel distortion and parallel
it's
compression
it's
and,
sick.
And even EQ and stuff.
I think you're so right with the parallel stuff, and especially of rooms and overheads. Like that's where you get that kind of like the ambience that you can't capture apart from a live drum kit. Like I just don't think you can actually achieve that unless you've got a mic in a room, with Addictive Drums or Tune Track or anything like them. They're fine, but I just don't think that you can capture that ambience that you can with a mic in a room type thing.
Yeah, there's something, well, it's like, the ability to move those mics when if you hear something wrong, whereas those other ones, they're great, but then you can't be like, oh, I wish it was just a bit more. And sometimes they're almost captured too perfectly.
They do,
And I embrace the shit.
Yeah, 100%.
That makes it a bit more unique. And
I love always setting up a microphone where you shouldn't. And using a really terrible like Behringer mic. Because you just won't get the shitness that you will through a good mic that sounds really nice.
And another thing I forgot as well is like layering in like samples from genres that shouldn't work with rock and roll. So like lots of time I've been doing just like 808 kicks on a live drum kit.
Unreal.
And then just, I don't know, playing around filters as well. Just filtering things like lots of the time on overheads and stuff. I'll have it filtered all the way down to like 12K and then crank the hell out of 16K, which technically shouldn't exist. But makes these, I don't know, it's like brightening curves without harsh. And then, like dance kicks and dance snares, like just create like Lindrums tuned up on rock and roll kits.
Let's kind of like unpack that a bit. Like, do you notice a huge difference between mixing the electronic stuff and mixing the rock stuff?
Yeah, I reckon like the band rock and roll stuff, I go harder on things and a bit more like, well, I don't overly compress like snares and like things, but like I tend to use a bit more saturation, distortion. That's obvious. Whereas in the electronic-y and pop stuff, I'll still use saturation, distortion.
But more tastefully,
well, unless it's stylistic, unless I'm going for like Gustaffelstein, fucking obviously, like where it's meant, that's part of the aesthetic. That sort of thing. Where it's like, oh yeah, right, sick. Then I'll still use saturation, distortion, but just be a lot more, it's kind of like a bit harder. Not hard. It's like you have to be tuned in and then really thinking about, like, maybe it's because I've been doing the band stuff the most, I just kind of go for it. Whereas like with the dancing and pop stuff, you kind of got to think about where you're placing things a lot more.
For sure.
And it's like, all right, how's this going to, like, if you over distort something, it'll either change the whole vibe of the song, or it'll just take up space.
Yeah, and I think
because like there's not heaps of room in that stuff.
Yeah, and I think the thing with like live music and stuff is every piece of that puzzle creates the big picture.
Yeah,
and it's the same for dance music, and electronic music, but because samples and synths and stuff, they're so pristinely captured because they won't sell otherwise, if unless it's
Yeah.
a particularly shitty thing intentionally. But most of the time, people want clean sounding samples. They want clean sounding synths. And so everything has to fit so well together. Otherwise, the mix just sounds like crap and
Yeah.
people aren't going to like it.
Yeah.
Whereas,
I usually still do distort a few things for interest. But then there are some things like that you just can't fuck with if they don't want them to.
Yeah.
It's like, but I'll still sometimes do mix passes where I do and be like, all right, this is the more tradish one, and then this is what I think would sound cool, which is a good thing to do, because then it'd be like, we can go with the boring one, or we can go with the one that might pique people's interest and get them to think it's something fresh instead of just trying to copy whatever else. But I guess the main thing, the similarity between both that I forgot to mention maybe is like that I reckon is really important is I always focus heaps on the arrangements of songs and stuff. And it's like I go through stages, but like most of the time it's like don't unless it's like, a psychedelic song where it's got to be layered to crap. But it's like, I don't know, I just really tap into arrangements and try to minimize unnecessary clutter. So it's like, all right, we got a big long kick drum note and then a big long bass note and then all these synths and guitars that are just doing big long notes. It's like, it's going to end up with a shit show that you can't EQ your way out of. So mindfulness of arrangements is a big one.
and does that come into play like towards the start or more when you've actually got the kind of song layout done?
I try to think about it along the way. It's like, obviously it's like sometimes if you're pressed for time and you only have, like say you've got a day or something to work on something, you just throw everything at the wall and then but then all it's like before the song's kind of finished, I'll be like, all right, mute that, bring that in, and it's like a little piece together.
Yeah.
And just try not to, I don't know, play all your, cards at once and then you have nowhere to go. So you feel like you have to just put more crap in. Whereas sometimes like a minimalist approach.
Yeah.
Will,
and the attachment to the stuff that you've recorded as well.
Yeah.
You kind of got to separate yourself.
Yeah,
You've got to be in a different headspace. And
and like it's hard, but sometimes it's like, that's my favorite bit. But I know it sucks.
It's just ruining everything else. Fuck. I love it.
Yeah. That's the thing. It's like, think about it, but don't let it govern your whole entire
and then just use
process.
that part in a different song.
Yeah, exactly. So you can always go back and do arrangement stuff later. That's what I reckon. It's just like strike while everyone's got get a vibe. Just go and be like, what about this? And also it's like sometimes like, first thought is the best thought. Don't overthink shit, and then don't just like if something's not working. Sometimes just like, all right, let's do something else instead of trying to like really just power through and then everyone 100%. Just gets cut and cranky and someone goes off and gets like food. And
there's only so much you can do with the sound. Like one little thing.
Yeah.
To just like banging your head up against the wall and diminishing returns type thing.
Yeah.
That's where I was going with that one.
But yeah, so drum mixing.
Yeah. 100%. You can do 5 different drum mixes in any one song and they'll all probably work. So it's like just stick with the one and go with it and see what happens.
Go with your gut.
Yeah.
And then tweak later. And it's like, that's the thing, because another thing that's good is just like, being able to reflect later as well is good. So it's like, I just go with my gut, do what I think sounds good and what I'm the vibe, and if everyone else is vibing, they're like sick.
Yep.
And then you can always just change it a bit.
Yeah.
Tomorrow.
Yep.
There's no point like I usually don't throw on reference tracks and stuff and I kind of use them just more like overall frequency balance to make sure I haven't completely missed the mark.
Yep.
But then you listen to some stuff and it's just like sometimes missing the mark means you've made something new and exciting.
Vibey, yeah.
You're like, you don't want to be blown up.
So
don't want to be blown up subs or anything. But sometimes it's like, whoa, this is way too like dull compared to this other thing. It's like, is it? But what if we make it duller? Isn't it? If you take a mistake and make it deliberate.
Yeah,
kind
that's
of like
sick.
it's like
I love it.
I remember when it's like Unknown Mortal Orchestra. I was like, ooh, this is real cool. But it's like stylistically, deliberately no top end. But I reckon maybe the key thing I've kind of figured out is like if the bottom end's good, even everything's going to sound good, and it's going to, if the bottom end's nailed, then the rest of it's going to sound deliberate. Yeah. So just like sometimes just leaning into shit.
So true. Yeah.
It's good.
Yep. 100%, man.
As long as your bottom end's sorted.
That's it. Yeah. Yeah. And that could be a whole conversation in itself. So, let's talk about like, specifics because I like to get nerdy. Let's start off with hardware. Some bits of gear that you can't live without.
Let me think. What have I got? I like just like an 1176
Yep.
compressor.
Yep.
That would be, I know it's like the classic one.
Yep.
Trying to think of what other gear that I use all the time.
And microphones.
Microphones. I just love like weird old dynamic microphones.
Cool.
Like got these sort of like, I got my friend to buy them off eBay in Germany, like just old Telefunken dynamics.
Yeah. Yep.
I love 57s.
Yep.
And just like all the stuff that doesn't really cost heaps of money. But then I like, I've got this, there's this, it's called like Weird Audio or something. I bought this random mic when I was just feeling flossy a couple of years ago, not spending money during lockdown. I was like, oh, yeah, I can afford all these new things. So it's like, I don't know, it's like a nice tube version of an old 47 but with a modern twist.
Yeah.
Which I've been using heaps because it can go either clean or you can go the other way.
Yeah, sick.
You can slam it up. And then just guitar pedals on things, I reckon.
Yeah.
Just running shit through just things that shouldn't go through things.
Yeah.
Like what's one I've been using a lot is a color box.
Cool.
Which is pretty much emulates a Neve preamp getting slammed.
Oh,
if you want, you
sick.
can go clean to dirty and you can just plug synth. I've been plugging synths through it and just going whoop,
Yep.
and then paralleling that out. What's another thing that I can't live without? I guess just the thing I use the most is just like 1073 or 1081 pre's.
Yeah.
Because then you can just get a bit of, I don't know, I like them. Yeah, but
they've got
I like doing the whole like cranking one up and leaving one sort of thing.
Sure, yeah.
So they just like saturate really nicely.
Yeah. Fantastic software. What are you running?
Well, I was always on like running Pro Tools for mixing and stuff and band tracking, and I was running Logic for writing and that sort of shit. But I've just last 4 or so years I've just hit Ableton. I don't know why, just because I don't know, like I just get sick of using things. I'm like, oh, what about this one? So I could have just probably kept with Logic, but then I think I was doing like a record with these people and they were using Ableton. And I was like, all right, instead of you having to bounce this out and stem, I was like, I'm just going to get Ableton. Is when they did the like, just you could start off the different. I think I started with like not the fancy one, the in between one.
Yeah, yeah.
And then I was just like, I don't know, it's just a different approach. And I was just fucking up heaps of shit.
Completely.
And I was just like, all right, I'm like, ooh, I don't know what I did there. Like, I don't know, just like making mistakes and imperfections is fun. And that's how you do shit. I was like accidentally like, just latched an LFO onto something. And I was like, I don't even know you could do that, but I don't know what I've done. But this is sick.
That's sick.
So I was like, so now like lots of the writing and production shit I do in Ableton, unless it's live. Like, acoustic instruments and stuff.
Yeah.
If I was doing a band, I'll still use tape. I still use 2-inch 24 track tape machines if it suits the performance and the style of music.
Cool.
Like I'm going to do in July, my friend's playing a band called Sweet Talk, and they're kind of like,
Sweet Talk,
yeah, they got that sort of like sort of indie country sort of thing going on. And we're just going to set up at Sound Park. Just have all the doors open, but all the things marked up in different rooms, and just run it to 2-inch.
Unreal. Well, you'll get a vibe there if you're all about the vibe.
Pro Tools, 2-inch tape, and Ableton.
Sick.
And I'm liking production and stuff in Ableton.
Yeah.
Does it all for you. No.
Yeah.
Kind of like, all right,
the arrangement
it's good.
side of things.
It's just so good for trying out ideas quick.
Yeah.
Just throw shit on everything. It's like a different approach. I like it.
Yeah. Fantastic. And plugins?
I've been frothing Kush audio stuff.
Yeah.
I
haven't yet tried it out, but I've watched many a tutorial and I'm like,
and I like that. Yeah, I've seen a couple. I like that guy's like.
He's funny. He's got a cool.
Like, hello and welcome to Late Nights. I can't remember his name.
Yeah.
The Kush stuff. What else have I been using?
Late Night with Kush.
Yeah. Trying to think. I still use like Renaissance compressor and stuff by ways until almost recently when they said they were going to go subscription, and I was like, just fucking ways, just finding another way to screw everyone over.
Yep.
But then they went back on that.
Yep.
What else? I'm trying to think now. That Sound Toys shit.
Yeah.
I go between Decapitator and Radiator.
Yep.
Like I get sick of stuff a bit. Not sick. Oh no, I don't get
just
sick of it. I'm like, I feel like I've used this on heaps.
Yeah.
And then like what else? Saturation things like black box.
Yes.
HD,
So
whatever it
sick.
is.
HD2, yeah.
Yeah, that thing.
Unreal.
Kush stuff.
Yep.
A bit of the Slate stuff's cool.
Slate's crazy.
I like I've I got a bunch of that stuff. I just like, I don't know, it's just like one plug-in visually, then you open up and the saturation and shit's good.
So good.
They got good saturators. What else have I been using? Audio things stuff.
Okay.
Have you come across like Reels? They've got Outer Space, I think it is.
I don't have any of it.
Audio thing. I don't know where they're from. I think I'm getting sort of Scandinavian vibes from that company just because of like
the design. The
yeah, and also what they're doing. Like they got like, I don't know, just good lo-fi sort of this thing called Reels, which speaking of like learning stuff of people that are, you know, more coming up underneath you, a buddy called Budo. I was like, what's that? He's like, have you heard of that? I'm like, no. It's like Reels. I'm like, sick.
Download.
Actually, no, he had it on a session and it didn't open up and it was a thing for the sound.
Yeah.
So I was just like, I'm going to have to buy this.
I'm glad you did.
I'm looking off to the left. I'm trying to go down through my plugin list. And imagine, think if there's any like ones that I've missed.
It's all good.
I'll check it. What platform does it you put this up on?
This will be on Spotify, YouTube. All
right, I'll chuck it. I'll come back. I'll come loop around in the comments.
Yeah, sweet. Love it.
I'll be like, I missed this one that I use all the time. This one I use all the time.
Yep.
Yeah.
Nice, man. Well, before we finish up, I always like to ask the final question being, what is kind of a piece of advice for, first of all, producers and engineers, and then secondly, artists? And it's good because you straddle both those titles. So start with producers and engineers. What's the biggest piece of advice that you can give to them?
I would say check your egos at the door and just like work on building relationships with the people you work with and surround yourself with people that are also doing, you know, the like-minded individuals that are doing well.
Yeah.
And don't beat yourself up.
Yeah.
Because it is, you know, it is like a slow, but like occasionally you get the, you know, the like stroke of luck thing, but like lots of time it can be a bit of a slow.
Yeah.
But then also you look back and go, actually, no, I'm doing cool stuff.
Yeah.
Just be yourself, but you know, like just don't be a dick.
Yeah.
And
surround yourself with good people. Love
try
it.
to just put out your best work.
Yep.
That's it.
Fantastic. And then for artists?
For artists, I'd just say just hone the craft of songwriting and even like getting into like having a knowledge of, you know, how to record and produce stuff yourself, because then you can become self-sufficient.
Yep.
And I guess it's like more currently it's just release frequently.
Yeah.
Is a good
100%.
one. That's become more of a thing over the last few years. It's like
the strategy's completely changed.
Just like instead of like dropping an album, just like release, just be doing stuff, just be doing shit constantly.
Correct. Yeah. Don't let people forget about you.
Yeah, and even don't let, you know, just
don't let the algorithms forget about you.
That, but like, you know, chuck something new up every 3 months.
Yeah. And it's I think it's so freeing personally. Like the last serious band I was in, the Playbook, we spent a year and a half like making our album.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's cool. We've got an album. That feels great. But it's like, it's so freeing to be able to just do like these one-off things and just kind of get experimental with songwriting and just have fun with it. And also just have fun with releasing. It's like, people, if they like you, they're going to find cool new things about whatever you release that they like.
Yeah.
And so, you know, do an acoustic track, do a synth-based track, like have fun with it.
Record yourself doing a cover and a rehearsal. Yeah. You know, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
You just to chuck up on socials, whatever.
Yep.
And songs. I reckon I'm a big song guy.
Yep.
Like I'm still like, you know, always trying to hone songwriting and that sort of stuff and arrangements.
Yep.
And read books because they're great for just
input.
Like, yeah, and just like lyrics and stuff.
Yep.
You might get little, surround yourself with other just little stimuli, which will just all
love it.
I don't know.
Just different bits of art. Yeah.
Books, go watch movie. Even like just sometimes like not doing music for a bit can help your music.
Yeah.
Don't try to force it.
Absolutely. It's like, I mean, another analogy of going to the gym, you gotta leave the muscle to repair for it to get bigger. It's the same with songwriting. It's like, and drums, like this was a huge thing for me for drumming was like, I realized that when I stopped, because I stopped for like a year or two, and then I came back to it and I was like, I feel like I've gotten better.
Yeah.
And it just gives your brain that kind of space to take in all of the stuff that you've previously been learning. And then when you jump back on, it's like I've unlocked stuff just by watching other people and just by doing, and Makes it fun again. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. Because if you're just sitting there, you cut yourself off from the outside world. There's no input.
Yeah. Yep.
Keep that input coming.
Love it, man. Well, this has been awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining me.
Well, thanks for having me.
No worries. Where can people find you?
Where can they find me? I guess just the usual socials.
Yep.
I think I've got a website up there.
Yep.
alexmarkwellmusic.com, I believe. Is that it? Do you look it
I'll
up?
have all the links in the show notes.
You can
anyway.
find me. You can find me by looking at the notes at the bottom of the.
Yeah, man.
Maybe down at like the Prince Hotel and something.
Beautiful.
And strolling by the beach with my dog.
Unreal, man. Well, thank you again, and thank you to everyone that's checked this out. What really helps us is if you share this podcast around, whether that's in a DM, on your stories, in a conversation, which we love to have these days, being out of COVID again. And just make sure you hit follow or subscribe on whatever platform you're on so you can stay up to date with the new episodes.
Cheers.
Thank you. Thank you. See you next time. Thanks for listening to What's That Sound? Make sure you hit follow or subscribe on your podcast platform to stay up to date with each new episode. We'll catch you next time.